There are those topics that parents really don't look forward to discussing with their teenagers. One of them is undoubtedly dating. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just me. How beneficial could it be to have that frank conversation with your teenager right now? Well, registered counsellor and friend of the show, Shanaz Moos, joins us on the couch to share her thoughts. I don't know if I'm ready for this conversation. I don't know. Look, I know my daughter's never going to date, so that's fine.
Heard that before.
So when my son starts dating, okay, then we've got to have that conversation. No, let's be honest here, because young people are going to make connections. They're going to fall in love. Are they ready to start dating? Is a teenager equipped emotionally, mentally, to start that phase of life?
Yeah, you know, there's so many thoughts on when are you ready to date. And for me, if you go into a teenager's room and you look at it, and then you wonder, this is your world?
Yeah.
Should you be bringing anyone else into this world through a date? But it's like, this is the progression of life. You're going to become interested. So whether you want to or not, this is the chemistry at work as well. So this is the phase you're going into. Most parents are in denial, though, that when that transition takes place, like, my child is now wanting to date. And that's when the questions and the conversation has to start.
And I suppose hopefully by then you have created enough of an open platform for discussion, so this just becomes another thing that you table in that safe place where you can talk about these things. What challenges should then a parent expect when your child does start dating?
Yeah, I think the dating world has changed drastically from, I don't know if you've seen these old memes with someone on the phone, and if you want to like block someone, you take your phone off the hook and whatever.
Yeah.
So that's my timeline of dating, or, you know, or whatever it is. But today it's instantaneous, and the social media and cell phones and technology have changed the dating world. For teenagers, it is nothing like we could even fathom. So we first need to get clued up onto how do kids date today before having that conversation, you know?
So we know the mode of it. What do we then, because most of us have our own checkered past when it comes to dating, and our own hang-ups and our own baggage and our own broken hearts and successes and failures. How then do we prepare our children for that world of dating? What do we say to them to prepare them to enter into that often tumultuous space of dating? Because it's heavy on the emotions.
Yeah, so often parents have this whole false scenario where they never dated anyone and they just got married and they had you.
Yeah.
You know, that's the end. But I think that when you share of yourself, so I've always been sharing my kids, part of my childhood, my teens, how I met their dad. No, not like this. Not like the series, like actually how I met your dad. And their dad tells one version and I tell another. So there's this two versions, and somewhere in the middle sits the truth. So always sharing, and who my first crush was. I obviously talk more to my daughter than I do with my sons, because I think emotionally, man, no insult to all the men here or whoever the viewers, but we invest more as women when we get a crush on somebody. We're like all in, we're signing the signature, you know, we're picturing now there's apps, how will our babies look, and we're like all, I don't think guys do any of that.
Yeah, well, I think you hit that point a little bit earlier, but I remember, I mean, I went through some intense crushes, especially with older girls. And I think that's often the case, and maybe this is definitely more of a dynamic with girls, certainly in a high school framework, that they will possibly be dating a much older guy. How do you feel about it, and how should we be approaching your, say, junior in high school, your daughter dating a senior high school student?
Okay,
we just say, no,
no. You know what? Again, sure, this seems like man-bashing, but the girls tend to mature earlier. So a 16-year-old cannot often date a 16-year-old because he's like 12, you know, emotionally. So she's often got to go a little higher to find an emotional match as close as possible. But the danger is a 12-year-old and an 18-year-old, like...
Yeah.
So you have to sit down with your teenager, with your tween, actually, and talk about those kinds of things. And just like you said, Graham, my husband said to my daughter, we only got one daughter, you will never date. And when she was 8, Daddy, when can I have a boyfriend? And he kept on saying, when you are 21. Every time she asked, he upped the age. We were on 40 the last time.
Fair game,
so
yeah.
I was very surprised when the moment arrived and we had to have this conversation. And we spoke about it, and he was like, okay, maybe let him come. And she was Yeah. So that conversation, it starts and it moves.
So
like
it actually
as you
almost
go
needs to start before the teenage years, just so that you are comfortable. But I'm a firm believer in something that you've established with me ages ago, is that the conversation, the medium of conversation needs to be there long before you broach these heavy subjects, so that you're comfortable to talk. I suppose ultimately we just want to make sure that our little ones, our boys, our girls, are with people who are going to respect them and look after them, and that they do get to experience the best of life, which, let's be honest, is love. We're going to be chatting a little bit more about the dating game when it comes to our teens with Shanaz. Don't move a muscle.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we continue our discussion around dating and our teenagers. Earlier in the show, registered counsellor Shanaz Moos shared her thoughts on why it's important for parents to talk to their high school children about dating, and possibly as they enter into that phase of life as tweens. And we're continuing the conversation with Shanaz Moos right now. I suppose maybe the most important question most parents are asking: at what age should we be comfortable, or maybe we'll never be comfortable with it, but should we allow our children to start dating? Is there a rule?
You know, I think a lot is depending on the parents and their situation and that conversation they have. But as early as 12 and 13, kids want to be hanging out together. So like we were saying earlier on, the group. So when they hang out in a group, they may have a crush on one of the friends in the group or whatever. So it's a form, like a form of dating, or chaperoning them as parents. So like you decide what age you're comfortable doing that and what you actually are comfortable with doing. Not in isolation, but with consultation.
Is there a way to gauge the emotional maturity to... What kind of conversation should you be having to say, okay, he's ready, she's ready?
So obviously a little bit about the body and the changes and hormones and sexual urges and all of those things, because it's like it feels nice to kiss a boy, or it feels nice to kiss a girl, right? But there's stuff that happens inside your body when you do that. The child doesn't know that, neither will they, talking to similar aged peers, get the right information. So it's a little bit about, you know, biology stuff and emotionally, I don't think you can at 12 years old enter like a serious relationship.
Emotionally, physically, mentally. This is stressing me out, this conversation, girl. Now we've gone from talking about dating to having the birds and the bees discussion. You're laying a lot on me, Shanaz, you're laying a lot on me. But we've got to be able to have these conversations with our kids. So maybe the rules can help us in that sense, create a safe space. You mentioned chaperoning. What other... Is it right to say you can see each other once a week? You're allowed to look at each other but not hold hands. So where do we draw the line?
So that's the consultation discussion you're having. Like your boyfriend or girlfriend can come over to the house. We'd like to meet them. You know, tell us a bit about their family, so you know where the person's coming from.
Vet them.
My daughter says that's old school when we used to say things like that. But like, and then that's important to know where your child is going and who your child's spending time with. And also to have conversations about social media. What will they post? What will they share with their said boyfriend or girlfriend? That once you put stuff out there, it can't, just doesn't disappear when you delete it. So that's the new age thing that we didn't have with our landlines, you know? The kind of content that
been cached,
that teenage couples will share.
What if you don't like them?
Oh, been there, did that.
Are you allowed to say no, or do you just have to say
You know what? Sometimes hard lessons need to be learned by the child. As long as you don't feel that this person is manipulating or harming your child in any way, there's a lesson in it. This relationship's meant to teach them something.
Okay.
We always want to protect our kids, and their self-worth is often tied to the relationships. So some lessons we cannot protect them from. But when we have a sense someone isn't a good person, or we know of a situation, then we obviously have to intervene.
Because you have a lifetime of experience to lean on when it comes to that.
Not because his pants is hanging here, or he doesn't shave, or
you can't
he's always in a beanie, whatever. You can't, you know, get upset for that.
Parents, don't judge a book by a cover. Kids, just give your parents a little bit of breathing room here. Remember that you are, without a doubt, the one thing that is probably the most important element of their life. That is why they care so much. why you are dating, who you are dating, and why it can be such a difficult conversation to start. But I really do suggest that kids and parents, you have that conversation now. Shanaz, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You've terrified me with this chat, but I feel like I've got a few more tools in my kit to approach the dating game when my little ones are ready for that.